You're listening to Big Blend Radio's Lost Angel Travel Adventures show with Linda Ballou, travel writer and author, and your host, Lisa Smith. Welcome, everybody. Linda Ballou is off on a Lost Angel travel adventure on the California coast, where she's working on an updated version of her Lost Angel in Paradise book. It's a perfect book to get now if you are exploring the California coast. So we thought, with The Chief of War, which is a Hawaiian historical drama miniseries coming up on Apple TV this year and featuring Jason Momoa, we thought it would be fun to revisit Linda's interview about her novel, Wai-nani, A Voice from Old Hawaii. Through Wai-nani's eyes, Linda's novel gives us a chance to experience the Hawaiian society as it existed when Captain James Cook arrived to the islands in 1779, and also shows how Wai-nani rose to become the most powerful woman in Old Hawaii. I encourage you to look at the episode notes, and from there you will be able to link through to Linda's websites to purchase the book, also learn about all of her books, and also to watch her Wai-nani Wayfinder video, and also see the article she wrote on our site blendradioandtv.com about the inspirations and research she did for the novel. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio. Very excited about today's episode. We welcome back travel writer and author Linda Ballou, and she's going to talk about her novel Wai-nani, A Voice from Old Hawaii. It is a story told through the eyes of Wai-nani, a amazing, I'm going to say a strong woman, a free spirit, a lady of the water. It really kind of takes us way back into Hawaii's history, but it's a fresh voice. And I love her voice and who she is. I've been reading this novel, and I'm very excited to have Linda join us to talk about just the history of Hawaii, the natural wonder of the Hawaii, and also the people of Hawaii, and this wonderful book that really goes back to the history back in the 1700s. So I encourage you to go to her website. It's lindaballouauthor.com. But welcome back, Linda. How are you?
Thank you. I just got back from the islands, and so I got my aloha fix. I'm good.
Did you see? Okay, so listen, I'm right in the heart. You know, I never finish a story. I really try hard not to, and it's been hard with your book because Wai-nani, I'm like, it's somewhat spiritual. It's Mother Nature. It's history. It's feminism strongly there. It's got everything I love in a novel, but there's something about the islands going out there that the aloha fix, I'm like, I knew you were out there while I'm reading this going, I'm a little jealous. I'm just saying. This is special. This is a special story because I think it's timely, even though it really does date back, right?
Actually, yes. I was inspired by the life of Kahumanu, who was the favorite wife of Kamehameha the Great. Now, I changed the names in the book to Wai-nani and Makaha for Western readers, because there's a lot of K words in the Hawaiian language, and it tends to confuse people. But she was a very strong, independent woman. She was the most powerful woman in Old Hawaii. And I was living on the North Shore of Kauai in 1978, and I got a job on the Garden-Owl and was able to run around and interview people. And it was the year that Captain Cook was landing, the bicentennial of the landing of Captain James Cook in the islands. And so I got, involved with the history of the islands, and then I fell in love with the Hawaiian people and their culture. And there was this strange dichotomy, here you have these people with a wonderful aloha spirit, right?
Right.
No child goes unloved, ohana, the community, everyone that takes care of each other and so on. But then there was human sacrifice in their background, and the 2,000-year-old Polynesian Kapu system that prevailed there since 1250, when the Tahitians brought it to the islands, until 1819, where that ended with the burning of the gods. So my story, or Wai-nani's story, is inspired by the life of Kahumanu, and 1750 to 1819 is the time frame. It's the story ends 1 year prior to missionary contact, and that's very important because Michener did a fine job, talking about the impact of the missionaries on the Hawaiian culture. I don't go anywhere near there. This is all just what was happening in her world when Cook landed, and Kamehameha's rise to power and how that evolved, and how she was with him shoulder to shoulder, through his progress. So anyway, it became a beautiful obsession for me. Over a 20-year period, I went back and forth to the islands. I was lucky enough to live on the North Shore for a solid year, which was one of the most blissful years in my life. And it was at a time when Honolulu Bay was a backwater. And, they filmed The Descendants there in Honolulu, and King Kong and many other movies. And it's become like the hottest spot in the islands, for wealthy people who can afford to be there. And so I was really fortunate to be there when it was really, no one went there because it was rainy. They all wanted to stay on the sunny side of the island. And it was also a time of spiritual awakening for me personally. There was a lot of alternative lifestyles, people experimenting with things, young people experimenting with, for instance, I got introduced to yoga there, and doing yoga on the beach, and being connected with the elements, deeply connected with the elements. And that, I think, really shows in my story.
I think when as a reader, for me, growing up in the equator in Kenya, and then later in South Africa, there's a connection for me. And I want to take this for people who have never been to Hawaii, and I have not. And I have done, Nancy and I have done a gazillion interviews with artists going and as residents, as artists in residence with the National Parks Arts Foundation, staying in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, or right outside there, and they, document before and after the recent volcano eruptions. And when reading your book, doing these interviews, I've had to kind of learn a little bit, like it's Hawaii and, where to put the comma and all these things. But in growing up in Africa, I've had to learn all these different languages. And when you read stories, it's interesting with your book, you start to adopt your own way of saying things. Because I don't know how to speak that way. So it's interesting because you say, Makaha, I'm like Makaha, because I'm going African style. Like, that's just me. But it's interesting, because you bring in the village. I'm going to say we got more than one village in the book, right? You got two, you got more villages than that, but you got the two different kingdoms almost, right? And they're two fighting kingdoms, but you're telling the story from, when you think about her, Wai-nani at such a young age, and her thought of what was going on, and already questioning things. And I thought that was interesting.
Well, that was it. Yeah, Wai-nani asks the why questions. That was, kind of my little secret thing about her name. Wai-nani means beautiful water. But in my mind, Wai-nani asked the why question. She questioned authority. Why, Father, can't I surf with the warriors? Why, Father, do we have separate eating? Why? And so she was, rebuked by her chief, her father, and she, resisted her culture and her society. And I was very much a rebel myself. So I identified with this woman. Hey, she's a childless bride. Most women are only important because they gave birth to somebody, or they married somebody in history. She was a childless bride who rose to be the most powerful woman in old Hawaii. And she's sometimes called the loving mother of the people because she cared for her people. And
the children, and even her sister wives. What do you call your next door, the wife of your husband? The other wife. What do you call them? The sister, the wife-in-law. And this is the other part. You touch on that, and here in this country,
right? Well,
now that's polygamy now, right?
Right. Well, she had to deal with the fact that he had to marry someone else because she couldn't conceive. So he had to marry the sacred bride, so that he could have an heir, that was in the bloodline. They were inbreeding like the Egyptians. They inbred. And instead of having, strange mutations, they evolved into like an Amazonian heights. He was like 7 feet tall. She was over 6 feet tall. It was very common for these people to be very, very tall and very, very athletic. Now, I do think that if they had something, a deformity, they would simply drown the baby. They wouldn't keep it around. I mean, they were a rough culture, and they had the Kapu system was terribly harsh. If you walked in the shadow of a chief, you could be clubbed to death for that. And become a human sacrifice,
But Wai-nani did have to walk she walked in the shadows of her husband, the warrior Makaha,
yes,
when she needed to, and in the is it Pele? I just put my own spin on how to say the different names, and I that's what I love about your book, because that's what brings me home is a lot of the historical fiction and a lot of the books I read that they when you bring in how people speak and communicate, then you're bringing sense of place like no other. Like you are in the village, you're around the people, and I really appreciate that you did that. And I have my own way of speaking the language now. I'm just saying.
It's an oral. That's fine. That's fine. I did put a glossary in the back. Like I said, there's too many K words in the Hawaiian language for Westerners. They get very confused. So in the back of the book, there is a glossary. Of words, Hawaiian words that I use in there, so that people don't get confused. It's Pele. And and in the Volcano National Park, Wai-nani does take you there. I don't know if you've gotten to the part where they go up to the volcano.
That's why
they do put an offering there. They're taking the umbilical cord of his son to the petroglyph field, which is there today. Ka'o. Wow. The petroglyph field can be visited in my Wai-nani's Wayfinder that I offer with my book. I take you to the sacred sites on the Big Island, which was the center of their culture. And they were warring constantly with Maui. And Maui, Kahekili, is the name of the chief, the real name of the chief. I call him Pano. Pano means thunder. And Pano was tattooed from head to toe, including his eyelids. He was a very dark and dangerous figure in Hawaiian history. And there is some rumor, and I don't want to give it too much, maybe I won't give it away, about Kamehameha's genealogy. I won't give that away. Anyway, it is a big part of the story. It's kind of a Shakespearean twist. That's the other thing about this story. In the very first chapter, I talk about, or first chapters, I explain how there was a prophecy that a warrior would be born who would unite the Hawaiian Islands, and that a rooster tail, a fiery rooster tail, would go across the sky, and that would mark the birth of that warrior, right? Doesn't that remind you a little bit? Isn't it a little bit biblical? Doesn't that kind of remind you of a story? There's so many things. There's so many things I found so fascinating.
Writing this, I mean, that's, to me, it's like it takes you into that folklore, but when you start getting into this, you start to find all the connections. Like you start to realize the world, the entire planet is connected in some way, and we share all these different stories. And that, like, to me, reading this took me home as a young woman, young girl, growing up in a different culture, amongst many different cultures, I should say. It was really interesting because you had to know who you were, and you had to grow. I mean, I grew up in a culture where everyone was graduating, engaged, and pregnant, and I said, I ain't doing any of that. Hell no. It's not happening. And that's something we're all connected on that,
Right. So back to her being a strong woman. So I was, trying to decide in my own life, when I was living on the North Shore, what I was going to do with my life. I wasn't wild to get married. I really didn't want to have children. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to have self-fulfillment. I wanted to, live up to my potential, things like that. And I just wasn't typical of the girls that I went to school with and college, and all they wanted to do was get married and have babies. So this woman just stood out to me as someone that I admired and emulated and got very involved with her. She was also very sexually liberated, which I admired.
You got some love scenes. I'm just saying, girl, reading this, I'm like, Linda Ballou, you wrote that? I'm like, come on now. We've been talking about hiking and nature, but you went to the deepest part of nature. There's some sex in this. Just saying.
Yeah, well, they were very sensual.
Yeah.
They were a very sensual society.
You make me sit up. I'm just going to tell you that. I sat up and I did go, Linda. Just kidding.
But there's nothing horribly graphic in there, Lisa.
It's not
I want people to know that. It's not graphic. There's innuendos, but there's nothing really graphic. They had love games. The royals had love games. Even the commoners had love games. So, even if you had a steady partner, so to speak, with children and so forth, you could go to an evening of love games and, you sat in a circle and you'd throw your fob into the coconut shell across from you. And if it landed 3 times right, you could go with that person and have a nice evening. Wow. So, they had a very liberal way of looking at life, but still, I didn't believe that a woman could not be jealous of another woman who had the child of the man I loved.
You had such a good balance on that part of the book. And I should never read books before people come on the show, but the reality is that part of the book, to me, there was this, as a woman, I've been through that, in love, and then the breakup happens as a strong woman. And the reason the breakup happens is because, no, I'm not settling down, the love of my life. This is not happening because, hey, I ain't doing that. That's a very tough choice. And so when you take this in the book, and so personally, I'm reading this going, there's not very many of us around. It's growing, but there's not very much literature for women who, we're not bad, we're not mean because maybe we don't have children for any reason.
There are women who are self-actualized, Lisa, who don't revolve around other people's lives, and to me, that's a healthy way to be.
But to have that balance in your book of what you've created of women, there's that jealousy, anger part, and then it's like, we're going to work together. And that is what I would like to see more of in our society now, where women need to rise
work
up and
together,
be stronger, but work together. And I thought you covered that beautifully, because I was like, oh, here we go. And then I don't want to ruin the story, but it really was such a central piece.
But let me just say this. In the Hawaiian culture, the women are like sisters. There's a sisterhood a real sisterhood in the Hawaiian culture, and that was why it was true to the culture to have Wai-nani help the sacred bride, even though it broke her heart. She did it because she's Hawaiian. That was being true to the Hawaiian culture. So anyway, but also because she was a decent human being. But anyway,
I love that balance of what you did. I loved how you balanced that out and how you wrote that whole part. And,
I'm going to give you a good line, Lisa. Here's this. My mom read the book, right? And she wasn't exactly a liberated female. She had the, typical marriage of revolving around my dad. Anyway, she read the book and she said, well, you got the sex parts right. I said, thanks, Mom. I did something right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because I did. But there's that liberation part of women being part of it, and also conjuring it up. You also had that she's a feminist. She's also a very strong woman, and also very, very sexual. Like she's, the dances and talking to the spirits and connecting with the spirits. I do want to talk about the spirits and the dolphins. The dolphin is actually, the dolphins were actually the forefront.
The dolphin Yeah, the dolphin is a bit of magical realism in there, but it's not unrealistic because she was a water baby like all
Mm-hmm.
Hawaiians are water babies. She was a beautiful surfer, and they called it wave sliding. And the royals were allowed to wave slide, not the commoners. They had a very definite striated society. At any rate, it, I studied dolphin behavior. There is no dolphin behavior in that story that I didn't see somewhere, that I didn't read about somewhere. I saw in the first chapter she wins a surfing contest riding on the back of her dolphins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I saw a woman doing that in Florida. You know, she was riding her dolphins behind a boat, and being pulled along, standing on her dolphins. I went, well, okay. And then and dolphins live to be like 40 years, so it's not unrealistic to feel that she would have a relationship with a dolphin family for the entire, span of her adult life. And then in the scene where she helps the sacred bride with the birth, have you gotten there? To the birth
Yes.
of the baby?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm past
She
that.
calls her dolphin. She calls her dolphin tribe in to help with the birth, right? To Sonic. They do that. That is a real thing. They do that. Women. There are women who, and I've saw it on YouTube. When I wrote that, I didn't know that. I thought that was maybe I was stretching it a little bit, but in reality, they do have, women have had births in water with dolphins doing the sonic impulses to relax them.
See, this
I've
is
seen
why.
it on YouTube.
Well, it's and beyond the YouTube, I think one of the things that's important about it too is to understand those connections. I think you're also bringing a very environmental message through this too, because when we look at what's going on with whales are being with the sonar from what's going on with the military, and
Yes.
I think there's a connection there. There's a connection, just there is that connection. You can do it through sound, you can do it through feeling. You talk about the tingling.
Right.
That's something you always bring back about this tingling sensation between.
Right, it's the sonic impulses.
Yeah.
But dolphins have been in the first chapter. She's rescued by her dolphin friend Iku, right? Dolphins have been rescuing human beings since the Greeks. There's recorded incidents of dolphins interacting with human beings. They're intelligent, sentient beings. And I know there are groups in Hawaii who go down to Tonga every year and swim with the whales and the dolphins and have, very strong spiritual connections with these mammals. So I don't get it too woo-woo. I only put in there the actual physical things that I have read about human beings with dolphins.
But I want to ask you this. Number one, I don't want to tell everybody to go try and swim with dolphins, because there's also reports of if you're wearing sunblock, they can actually hurt them. So there's like an environment. It's like, don't ride elephants when there's certain things. But I wanted to touch on base with you on this, because you talk about the eye of the dolphin. Like, when you look at a dolphin, they do give you the eye, and it's very connected. And I wonder about this. They're like I know there's seahorses, which I love, but don't you feel like they are the horse of the ocean in a way? And I know you're a horse person like I am, that there is a connection there.
Well, this whole story is a fulfillment of my imagination, right? And I would love to swim with dolphins. I have fantasies about swimming with dolphins. I sit here in California in Malibu and I watch the surfers and I watch the dolphins. And I so envy them. Both. It's just something that I know I can't do. But in my imagination, I think it would be a wonderful thing to do. And so it became, the communication with the dolphins is real. We know that. And and I've had people who are dolphin experts read the story and tell me that they felt that the interaction between the human beings and the dolphins was realistic in their minds.
And you also hired someone to come and read what from Hawaii, to read a Hawaiian scholar, to read the manuscript to make sure that you've got the history correct and the actual culture correct.
Right, that I was true to the culture. That was very, very important to me. And I've had reviews from Hawaiians and Westerners and Hapahalis, half Hawaiians, and so on, who tell me, "Thank you, Linda. Thank you for being so careful and so true to the culture." So, I mean, that was a very serious thing for me. I mean, after 20 years of going back and forth, I realized I'd really taken on a big job of trying to tell the Hawaiian story, because it's an oral tradition. You know, there was no written language until the missionaries came and taught the Hawaiians to read and write. And so the earliest chronicles are clouded by the prism of the missionary point of view.
Right.
And so it's, you know, they handed their stories down through genealogical chants that went on for days. But the thing what I did was I used the myths, the meles, the songs, right? The poems, which I found in, you know, several different places. And Martha Beckwith is an expert on mythology, Hawaiian mythology, and I leaned heavily on her. And there's a woman, Mary Pukui, who talks about the values of the Hawaiian people, and I really did my utmost to recreate that culture just in this way. And listen, one of the toughest things was not to use any modern words to snap people out of ancient Hawaii. There's no word plastic, for instance, is not ever, and I didn't use big adjectives because they talked simply, you know, with warm aloha and short sentences and stuff. So I imitated them.
It's hard to do. I've written radio plays using imitations of people and only using their words out of quotation, like Mae West and Phyllis Diller and things, you know, and had to write an actual plays out of it where it's nothing but structuring it together. And I'm reading, I understand the task that you put on, not just from my experience, but also reading, you know, stories that I grew up with in Africa, where it'd be an oral tradition, especially with the Bushman and the Sun, that would come down. And here comes these books, and to get it correct, because you can get it, you know, the world's going to come down on you. I remember Nancy, when she published her first magazine in South Africa, she put it in Xhosa, she put it in Afrikaans and in English, and no matter what she did, the world came down on her. She had professors and everybody sign off on it, but you ain't going to get, you know what I mean? It's very difficult to
That's
appease.
right. And here's the thing, you're not going to please everybody.
You can't.
Know, it took me, you know, a while to have the guts to publish this book, because I knew there would be detractors, because the Hawaiian people are very sensitive about the corruption of their culture. And at this point, they're just downright angry, you know, talking about break sovereignty, and they're mad about Mauna Kea. You know, Mauna Kea is just a symbol of how angry they are, because they're being forced off their own island. A lot of them, Hawaiian people, can't afford to live in
sad.
islands because,
so I'm sorry, but
there is there is an undercurrent there. There is a lot of anger, and so when a white person, a haole, writes a Hawaii story, well, what nerve?
Yeah, I was going to say, how dare you, Linda?
Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? You know, how can you talk? But see, writers have this problem. I think it was Annie Rice. I'm trying to remember the name of the book that she wrote. It took place in the Newfoundland, and anyway, the people, when she published her book, you know, the local people said, how can you don't know us, you're not she says, look, I know you better than you know yourself, because I can look at you objectively. And in the Hawaiian case, they're not literary types for the most part. Hawaiians love to sing and dance and swim and play, and that's why I love them. They're a lot of fun, but they don't have a huge literary contribution. So I did my best. I did my honest best.
That you what I think what's good about it on that note is that it's educating people who have never been to Hawaii And if they've
Well,
gone,
that's
they're going to
it.
get they're going to have a connection. That's what I was saying.
That's
Like,
right.
I've never been there. I've done all these interviews about Hawaii and interviewed all these artists, and at the same time, never been there. And, Tanya Ortega from the National Parks Arts Foundation, she's like, Nancy, get your butts over here. Airfare is cheap. Come, especially after the volcano. It's erupting.
Yeah.
Come out of here. But at the same time, it's like, it is, for me, reading this goes right back to my home roots of Africa. Like I said, it's understanding these cultures, and you're going to read this, and you're going to create your own lingo of how to say everything, and then you're going to start going, hey, I'm going to go on the internet and check out this is all said and done. You're going to start being inquisitive about this and understand, and you're sharing history. And I think when it's historical fiction like this, it's important that you did what you did by bringing in the lingo and bringing in her voice and coming from her, Wai-nani, because then people can have that sense of place and sense of person. Very important. And that's what historical fiction does. I think really good historical fiction that keeps the basic facts in there. Yes, it's fiction, but at the same time allows you to learn history. They're learning. I mean, there's programs like Drunk History now just because we have a problem of teaching history. People don't want to know about history because it's about a bunch of dates and wars and timelines, and nobody's interested when it's presented that way. We need fiction, we need movies, we need all these things.
When it's a dry documentary, people are not interested. Well, Wai-nani takes you to a place you can't get to any
it's
other
exotic.
way because because it doesn't exist anymore. And the thing about it, people go to the islands and they don't really know the history. The Hawaiian people sort of hide it a little bit because they give you bits and pieces. They give you, but they don't give you a full picture. And that's what I tried to do. That was what because like you go to the Nepali jump-off place where there was a huge battle where 800 people died and so on, and it's in the story. But in Oahu, I was just in Oahu. But when you go there, the guides just tell you that little snippet. They don't give you the 1750 to 1819 full picture. And that's what I tried to do. And I don't think anyone else has done it. I really don't. I think people, like Brandon, his stories are Molokai and the lepers, and there are a lot of Hawaiian books, but I think I have given the fullest picture in a way that Western readers can comprehend it, and that is what I tried to do.
Well, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I mean, it's, to me, I'm just like, I want to sit slow with it, and that's something with your writing that you write where you put your travel books. We've talked about your Lost Angel books, on shows before, and there's something about your writing that makes you stop and think and feel and get visuals. And I think that's important, but it's important. It's we get bombarded with books and interviews and everything here, and it's like I take my time when it's worthy. You know what I mean? It's like take your time, and you command that. You're basically as a writer, so you're going to get the feel. You're very metaphorical in your writing, which I think is, and you do it in a really good way. That it's not overdone, but it's putting you that you put that sense of place. And I'm like, damn, man, she's really thinking about this. When I go, like, I stop, I go, like, how, like, I'm thinking about you writing this, like, she's got to have been proud about that paragraph, man, because that was good. You know what I mean? As a writer, you know how it is, right? Don't you get joy out of this? It's hard. Yes. You want to sweat bullets.
I'm going to admit that Wai-nani is my proudest achievement.
Oh, Wai-nani is well done. It is very,
of all the things I've done in writing and so on, it's like I say, it was a beautiful obsession. It was a 20-year beautiful obsession. Wow. And pulling it all together, pulling in all that research, I interviewed all these healing, kumus, masters. I got Lomi massage from the finest masters in the islands. That was important.
I would like that
But
now.
of course, I loved doing it, but I gathered so much information,
Mm.
because so then whittling it down and compressing it, and then having, like I say, the guts to publish it, because I knew there would be some people, some detractors,
Mm.
but it really hasn't been that bad. I've just had a few
Well, listen,
people who,
Wai-nani stood up, right? And so must you. If you're going to do that,
yeah,
this is
that's
important.
right.
You've got to
That's
stand up. You
correct.
cannot sit. You cannot wait for people to
That's
say whether or
right.
not you should do something. If you have a burning in your chest or, wherever to do something, you got to stand up and do it. Otherwise, you're going to
Right.
die not doing it.
That's correct. I would have been psychologically blocked for the rest of my life if I hadn't published that book.
And
So
I think
that's
it's
just
free.
the way it had to be. It had to be. I just had to deal with it. I have a talk that I give called Accepting Your Greatness, where I talk about how she embodies female empowerment and the steps that she went through, and how I've tried to follow that path, to lift the dragon's tail from your path at the end of the day is what you must do. And you just simply have to believe in yourself.
Yeah, and she was able to compromise because she believed in her strength and spirit. She was able to
I'm not going
compromise.
to tell you the end. I'm
Don't
not
you
going to tell you the
dare.
end, but
Don't you
I'm
dare.
not. I don't
Don't.
want my readers. I don't want your readers to know the end. I want them to read the book.
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to say that if people buy my book, Wai-nani, A Voice from Old Hawaii, on my site, lindaballou.author.com, I'm happy to provide Wai-nani's Wayfinder, which is that map to all
Cool
the
map.
sacred sites on the Big Island, which, when you go to Hawaii, it's just enhances your time being there if you know what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
If you know why these places are important, and they're all over the Big Island.
It's like a mini travel
Because
guide that's going to give you I think the 2-in-1. If you're going to go there, you need to take the book. You'd read it
right,
beforehand
read it on the plane.
Oh, perfect.
You got 5 hours on the plane. Read it on the plane.
Yeah.
And take the Wayfinder. And also, if you like audiobooks, I'm happy to give a free audiobook on
Awesome.
Audible. I have coupons for audiobooks if if that's what you enjoy.
So everyone, LindaBallouAuthor.com is the website to go to for that. Obviously, you can get on Amazon and all those places, but you know what?
Right.
I just always go to the author, go to the bookstore. I just got to say that. I always love bookstores and gift shops that, sell books. We got to look at the times that we're in and recognize the small business and the individual creative artisan. Linda, one last thing before you go. There's a part in the book, a lot of parts in the book that talk about lava tubes. So, having interviewed all these artists that have gone down into the caldera or been above the caldera, depending on when and what was going on with the volcano. So these lava tubes, this is a big part of the book where, people are going in and out of the lava tubes.
The volcano.
I want to know about the lava tubes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Pele had her own following, and of island people. What happened when the Tahitians came in 1250 was they brought the Kapu system, like I told you, and it was very harsh. So some of the people ran into the mountains and hid, and they lived in the lava tubes, like Thurston Lava Tube, which is a huge lava tube on the flank of Kilauea. And some people think that was the origin of the Minihunis because they would only come out at night. Minihunis are little people who come out at night and build things and do things, and that was where they hid, was in the lava tubes and in the mountains. And then on the Big Island, they were Pele's people, and they became a different culture, a hidden culture, a
like the
secret
Bedouins.
Culture.
Almost like the Bedouins.
Yeah. Okay, so a secret culture is what they were, and if you got caught by them, it was not going to be a good day. People feared them because Pele is an angry goddess. You know that. She's the fire goddess. She's a jealous goddess. You don't mess with Pele, and her people, were, fairly warlike, and so they lived in the lava tubes in the mountains in hidden places.
Mm.
So
Wow.
there you go.
Amazing. So lava tubes are like little caves, but they could go up in all these different
Big
places.
caves, big caves. They're
That's,
quite
yeah.
big caves. There's Thurston lava tube. You almost can drive a car through it. It's pretty big.
See, that's what I was
But there
asking.
are small ones.
Yeah, I've never been in a lava tube in my life that I can remember. So
I'm going to send you a picture of a lava tube.
I want to see a lava tube. I'm like, a lava tube. Like, you think about this. It's like, okay. I feel like it's a cavity in a tooth, you know. It's like, this is
So
crazy.
I'm going to send you a picture of Thurston's lava tube. It's
Oh,
huge.
awesome.
And
Please do.
I was, when I was in like 2014, I hiked what's it called, the Kilauea Iki Trail, where you go down into the floor of the crater, and the fumaroles were rising. The steam was rising from these fumaroles, and if you went off of the path that was marked with rock stacks, cairns, you could melt the bottom of your tennies. I mean, it was still kind of dangerous down there. But at the time, they let you do it. Now they don't let you do it anymore. But anyhow, I walked all the way across and then up the other side to the Thurston lava tube, which is a huge lava tube, and hid in the ferns. I was imagining myself to be one of Pele's followers.
This is cool. So you're reenacting while as you're doing this whole thing. Okay, so wait. Wait. We're gonna go. I gotta digress here. You said this is a 20-year obsession. So, like, when did you start reenacting Wai-nani in the ferns?
Oh, it became, like I say, it became just an obsession for me. I had to go to all these places.
But did you know you were going to write the book? Did you know you were going to write the book 20 years ago?
I was toying with it. Yes. Yes, I was. Yes, when I went to Kauai, I dropped out for a year and lived in Kauai. Decided whether or not I had the goods to be a writer or not, and if that was going to be the direction in my life.
Wow, it's amazing.
That's when I connected with this story, and yes, it was kind of like on the back burner for many years, and then I just finally bit the bullet and did it. But started the writing and actually did it. But for 10 or 15 years, I was just exploring. Like I had to go to the place of refuge, which if you go to the Big Island, you must go to the place of refuge. It's one of them. It's totally authentic, and they had kind of an ollie oxen-free kind of a justice system. Like if you broke a kapu and you were going to be used as a human sacrifice for your mistake, you could run to the place of refuge. If you could make it inside the walls of the refuge and the priest would take you in, you could be spared.
Wow.
And then if you followed certain protocols, you could be let back into society. So it wasn't exactly jail. It was like a free space. And I found that very fascinating. And I had to hang out there for a very long time because the bones of at least a dozen chiefs are in the walls there.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I had to go to these places.
I have to go to Hawaii now. I mean, I know we have to anyway because of our Love Your Park store, but I'm in like Flynn. I want to get in the lava tube. So everyone, again, Wai-nani, a voice from old Hawaii by Linda Ballou. Get it on Amazon. But again, really go to her website. And if you get the book from there, you get her Wai-nani's Wayfinder map. Nice, beautiful brochure. I have it. It was the first thing I got in my hands with the book. And I'm like, dude, I'm a sucker for maps. So, and especially ones that are like curated. And also, you get it from an artisan directly from the source. So go to lindaballouauthor.com. And also, we've got an article from her talking about writing the book, and you can see that at blendradioandtv.com. And of course, I always have to play music. So Hi'ilawe, I'm reading the book, and Hi'ilawe pops up, and Wai-nani is over there, and I'm like, Wai-nani, you're in Hi'ilawe. And the first thing I learned about Hi'ilawe was through Makana being on our shows. Makana, an amazing slack key guitarist from Hawaii.
Right.
And so I thought, well, we've got to play this. I sat up and I'm like, we're playing this song. Like when I'm reading the book, I'm like, we're playing the song. And then, then there's another love scene. So anyway, I was like, well, I might have to change the music. No, kidding. But
thank you so much, Lisa. It's always lovely to talk with you.
You too. And everyone, again, don't forget Big Blend Radio. We stream episodes on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, Sunday. Go to bigblendradio.com. The podcasts are available just about in any place you want. The list is on there. And here it is. Hi'ilawi, again, by Makana. You can keep up with him at makanamusic.com. And this is from his album, Ripe. Thank you so much, Linda. Happy travels. I know Australia is next, so enjoy.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye-bye.
Hi'ilawi. Kai kinaya hi'ilawi, kapapalohin maya umaukele. Kumaka kai kinaya hi'ilawi, kapapalohin maya umaukele. Wakele maya uikanuhi manu. Walau nei puni vai pio Pakele mai aui kanui manu Walau nei puni vai pio No vauelo amai Uhi vai anote hivi Eva eva nakamakua Ileia inakikupuna Eva eva nakamakua Ileia inakikupuna Lopuna kela ili amnai Nui kabaile au hi'ilawi Lopuna kela ili amnai Nui kabaile au hi'ilawi Mai nakapuana kumakakai kanaya hi'ilawi Indai mai nakapuana kumakakai kanaya hi'ilawi And so the story is told. All eyes rest upon hi'ilawi Ainda ia mai nakapuana kumakakai kanaya hi'ilawi
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Lost Angel Travel Adventure Show with Linda Ballou, travel writer and author. Keep up with her at lindaballauauthor.com and lostangeladventures.com. You can also keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com. Now, happy traveling.